think the most powerful thing when you have any goal, it's going to be scary. You're going to be afraid, but you have to do it anyway. You have to take those risks. And what is it that makes it worth our while to take those huge risks? To me, I think it's that why behind, why you must take this risk. And for me, I knew that I had to do everything in my power to become the best triathlete in the world because I was desperate to prove to myself, most importantly to myself, that not only was I worthy and that I could achieve something special even as a gay woman, but that I could be loved and I could make a difference in this world.
That's Siri Lindley. You may know of her because she has absolutely dominated the sport of triathlon as both an athlete and a coach. But before she found success in her career, she was controlled by deep-seated insecurity. In fact, as a young adult and student at Brown University, she was so plagued by her own fears, she could barely function.
So when I was 20 years old, I was going to Brown University in Rhode Island, and I was an absolute mess. I was truly terrified in my own skin, and I felt like a crazy person because I was so overwhelmed with fear and anxiety, and I didn't know how to deal with it all. Now, keep in mind, I'm a 3-sport athlete. I'm a field hockey player, ice hockey player, and lacrosse player at Brown. I'm getting straight A's. So on the outside, it looked like I had it made in my life and everything's great and I must be so happy. But on the inside, I was slowly dying and slowly giving up on myself and being too afraid to wake up in the morning and take on another day. And this OCD, this terrible, insane case of OCD, where literally I specifically remember trying to leave my dorm room to go to a lacrosse game. And I would be so anxious and so fearful that I'd be putting my socks on and off 10 times or 15 times until I felt like it was safe to leave them on this time, that nothing horrible was going to happen this time when I put my socks on, or washing my hands, for 10, 15, 20 minutes sometimes, and flicking the lights on and off in order to get these horrible fears and thoughts out of my mind. And no one knew anything about what was going on inside of me except me. And I not only didn't like the person that I was, but I was terrified of her.
Siri's fear had spun out of control, and it got to a point where she was even contemplating taking her own life.
I really was trying to come up with ways that I could just end my time on this planet. And that's a really horrible feeling. It's a really scary feeling to think that not being around would be easier than what you feel existing.
But one night, everything changed for Siri. She was in the Brown University library and stumbled upon Tony's book, Personal Power. In a desperate search for something, anything, to make herself feel better, she read the entire book, all 452 pages of it, in one night. And it was that one night that changed the course of her life.
The biggest revelation was understanding that I'm the only one that can change my experience of life. Life isn't just happening to me and you either are lucky and you're happy or you're unlucky and you're sad. We create our experience of life depending on what we're focusing on, the meaning we give things, and what we choose to do about it. I was focusing on everything I didn't want to have happen, so everything I was afraid of, focusing on fear. I was focusing on everything that I felt was missing, and I was focusing on everything that I had absolutely no control over. So you can imagine when you have your thought pattern is all based on this lack and fear and everything that you want to avoid. No wonder I was feeling as horrible and sad and crazy as I was. And when I realized that these irrational fears had suffocated me, paralyzed me. Like literally, I was sabotaging my whole entire life to the point that I didn't want to live it anymore. That's how powerful that fear was. But what I realized is that instead, I knew that I couldn't release fear altogether, but I was determined to let go of fearing things that I had no control over, fearing things that made no sense.
That night, Siri made the decision to let go of her fears. She also set a goal for herself that was not only risky, but seemingly impossible. She set a goal to become the best triathlete in the world.
For me, I knew that I had to do everything in my power to become the best triathlete in the world because I was desperate to prove to myself, most importantly to myself, that not only was I worthy and that I could achieve something special even as a gay woman, but that I could be loved and I could make a difference in this world and I could inspire other people. Like this was a desperate mission for me. So I didn't care how afraid I was. Nothing was going to stop me because a risk was worth taking.
But there was one small problem.
I didn't know how to swim. I was 23 years old. How did I expect to be the best in the world when at that level, I mean, it's former Olympians, it's former Olympic swimmers, and I'm just learning how to swim. Yes, I was terrified, but I also knew that, like, to me, I felt like fear is the universe saying, take this on. This matters. Everything great in your life is going to be on the other side of this fear. Step in.
So Siri stepped into her fear. She got herself a coach, moved to Boulder, Colorado, and then to Australia, where the best triathletes in the world were training. She surrounded herself with people that were better than her, including world champion triathlete Mikele Jones, and modeled them.
You want to achieve something spectacular, well, find someone that's already done what you're dreaming of achieving and do what they do. I needed to, watch her rituals and her habits and eat like she ate and train like she trained. And my God, it took me to a whole new level to where I was racing pro and coming in, top 15 in the world at the time.
After years of training, Siri had the opportunity to go to Switzerland and work with renowned coach Brett Sutton to prepare for the Olympic trials. And what happened on her first day of training, she never could have imagined.
I get to Switzerland and oh my God, it's day one. First of all, the camp is 20 miles up this massive mountain that's like a wall and with switchbacks. And I get a knock on the door in the morning. He's like, we're going swimming. The pool's, down at the bottom of the mountain. I thought, okay, cool. I ride my bike downhill. That's easy. Get down there and I swam double the longest swim I'd ever done in my life. And the whole entire swim was so hard. I could barely breathe. I felt like I was drowning. By the end, I could barely turn my arms over. We finish the swim and we get out and we've got our bikes. And I look over at my friend and I'm like, hey, where's Brett? Where's the van? How are we going to get home? And she laughed at me and she said, are you kidding? You ride home. And I'm thinking, ride home? I don't even know if I can stay seated on my bike, like up that steep a hill. And so I made my way up that hill and it was the most brutal 2 hours of climbing to go 20 miles. My legs are just blowing up, just feeling like they're exploding. Get to my room. I'm about to start making my lunch, knock on the door again. And it's Brett. We're going running. Be upstairs 5 minutes. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like I've trained, 4 hours already today and I'm dying. And I got home that night and I was in floods of tears. I could barely walk. I was dehydrated. I called home and I'll never forget. My mom was saying, hey, Siri, don't be afraid. You passed the test. It was a test. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Well, it wasn't just a test because the next day it was the same exact thing. The day after that, same exact number of hours, the brutality of it. It was just agonizing. I cried every single day in the swimming pool. I'd have tears filling up my goggles. I didn't know how I was going to survive this. It was physically just agonizing. But the brilliant part of this is week after week after week. And I'll never forget one day I showed up at practice and I could barely walk. And I said to him, I was afraid to go up to him, but I found the courage and I said, Brett, I can't do what you're asking me to do today. I can't move. And he looked at me and he kind of looked at the door as if to say, well, you can either leave or find a way. And I knew in that moment that there was no getting out. There was no turning back. It was finding a way, finding whatever I had inside of me and pulling that out and doing the best that I could to get it done. And it was brilliant because, I mean, think about it. How can we ever know what we're truly capable of if we're not trying to do what we don't think we can every single day? And that means being afraid and doing it anyway. Yes, you're going to be afraid of failing. You're going to be afraid of not being able to do it. You're going to be afraid of being rejected or whatever it is, but you've got to try. You've got to do it anyway. And what kept me going was that why, that this was for me. This wasn't for anyone else. This was for me, that if I could prove that I had the toughness and the courage and the ability to grind through and accomplish everything that he was asking me to do, I truly felt that I would find that love and that respect for myself, that appreciation that I'd been so desperate for a lifetime.
Siri went on to win 13 World Cup races, the World Cup Series in both 2001 and 2002, and she was inducted into the Triathlon Hall of Fame. In the end, she realized that what she thought she was afraid of all along, every single fear she overcame throughout her training, those were just symptoms of a much bigger fear.
My biggest fear all along has been accepting me. And when I finally decided to do that, my whole life changed. I found love, I found success, I found everything. It's kind of like the gift of choosing to be fearlessly, authentically you.